is my home, where the world
Home was the place where the folks were. But whether you traveled back on weekends or returned to stay, home no longer looked the way it did in your memory.
now there seems of destruction on every hand, and there's only black waters run down through my land. Sad scenes of destruction.
By the 1950s, mining companies had found a way to extract the coal that was even cheaper than mechanized underground mines. It was called strip mining.
Coal companies began to use new technologies, interestingly enough, that had been developed during the 40s and as a result of the war, to strip mine, to remove large parts of the surface material in order to get at the seams of coal.
Underground coal miners wouldn't even call that mining. I mean, there's no coal mining skills involved in it from their standpoint. It's more heavy construction skills. But it occurs because the same reasons that mechanization occurred in underground mines. In order to beat out your competitors in a tough market, you get it as cheap as you can.
It's a job and people need to work, and strip mining is a way of making a living for people. They say a lot of the strip mining that they're doing is actually tearing up the land, and it's causing a lot of problems with the wildlife. You're invading their habitat, and the streams and rivers is causing the big problems for the fish and things. And so a lot of people is very much against that.
Landowners took their protests to the state capitol. They claimed that strip mining was polluting their waterways and devastating their forests.
The absence of trees from the hillsides also increased flooding. Massive floods occurred in Appalachia in the late 1950s, many of which were the events that helped to lead to the rediscovery of Appalachia in the 1960s by the federal government.
Well, of course, this state has been hard hit. In fact, probably more hard hit than any state in the Union. There are about 250,000 people in West Virginia on surplus food. What I think the most significant thing is that most of these people have been put out of work because machines have taken their place. But this is a great national problem to which we've devoted very little attention.
In 1960, West Virginia was the site of a fierce political battle, the Democratic primary campaign between Hubert Humphrey and John F. Kennedy.
When John Kennedy needed to establish himself as a compassionate man and also win a state that was not anti-Catholic but suspicious of Catholics, West Virginia seemed perfect. So he went down to have himself photographed among the poorest of the poor, Appalachians.
I think he genuinely was also shocked when he came here. I think there was a stereotype that poverty only existed in the cities, and Appalachian poverty was something that people didn't look at. We were kind of a forgotten place.
The powerful new medium of television covered the campaign. Teams from every network captured the heartbreaking face of the rural poor.
This is Walter Cronkite reporting. Today we visit another part of America where bewilderment and despair gnaw unchecked at the foundations of an essentially optimistic society.
What Americans saw were once again backward people, backward Appalachians that we need to feel sorry for.
In the tight folds of the East Kentucky mountains, dead machines are strewn on the misty hills. Bought for $50, $100.
People were suffering, and people were hungry.
But simply as rural, non-farm. If young, he must change his life. If old and lucky,
there were
he and his wife
terrible problems, but at the same time, people resented the way that poverty was looked at. I think the way it was handled in the media.
And this administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America.
When Lyndon Johnson declared a war on poverty in 1964, the media returned in force to Appalachia. Widespread pictures of raggedy children on ramshackle porches outraged a lot of local people. Television and magazines were not showing reality as they knew it, and they thought the news stereotypes were as damaging as the violent caricatures that dated back to the feud between the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Goldie Johnson cooks for 7.
There were poor regions throughout the country, but the human face of hunger and need looked a lot like Appalachia.
In the yard, there are the dead outlines of a flower garden Goldie Johnson tried to keep one forgotten spring and then gave up on. She has worked hard every day of her marriage. There is nothing conceivable that can stop her work as long as she lives. She knows now it will have to be a life without flowers. This is the road.
Charles Gurault, we came to know him as this wonderful old uncle of a fellow, that did wonderful things and had a great respect for people.
That it is Christmas in Appalachia.
But in that particular Christmas in Appalachia, it was condescending and very troubling, I think.
And beside these roads, the shacks of tar paper and pine, which are
What that did, an act of compassion, say, or seeming an act of compassion, just once again put another layer onto this hillbilly stuff.
The war on poverty focused the nation on Appalachia. Under the VISTA program, idealistic young men and women moved in to work with the mountain poor. And the region was receiving its first federal support since the New Deal. Appalachian people were grateful for the help. What they did not want was pity. But regardless of new social and economic programs, it was becoming more and more difficult for Appalachian people to hold on to their most precious resource, their land.
I'm the 4th generation now to put my back to this mule and plow. We have always found a way to stand tall or kneel and pray.
The Army Corps of Engineers was still building dams for flood control, as it had since the 1930s. State governments saw that the lakes created by the dams could be turned into tourist attractions. But the flooding of lush bottomlands and farms meant that someone was losing land their family had worked for generations.
The porch steps by evening's end forever will be flooded in.
It was more than just the land. I mean, we lost the whole community. We lost the people.
It was a total devastation. It took all of our home farm that we had. My brother wanted to come back and farm on the farm, and Dad said, no, there's no need to. But you need to go on with your life and make other arrangements and not think on settling here and making your roots here, and he did so.
I looked out at my land today for as far as the eye can see. It is the land my great-grandfather settled. We worked this land. We built the house with our very hands. This land is as familiar to me as my own skin. And now those bastards, the Corps of Engineers, are burying me. They're stealing our land. There's nothing left for me now. I don't give a damn if I live another day. I am already dead. William D. Currents, Bulltown, West Virginia, 1976.